My best friend was sleeping with my husband. I found out, stayed silent, and plotted a revenge so perfect that neither of them ever recovered. Hello, Reddit. I never thought I'd be here sharing something so intimate from my life, but after everything that's happened in the past few months, I feel like I need to get this story off my chest. Maybe it will serve as a warning to others, or perhaps even as inspiration for someone going through something similar. My name doesn't matter, but I've been a university professor for 15 years. I'm 42 years old, have 2 wonderful kids, a 14-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl, and until 8 months ago, I believed I had a solid 16-year marriage with Richard, a successful corporate lawyer. I also believed I had a best friend for life, Lauren, whom I met in college and who had always been there during the most important moments of my life. The life I thought I had collapsed on a Sunday afternoon when I left my phone in the living room and was surprised by a notification on my husband's iPad, which was synced to his phone. A message from Lauren. And it wasn't just any message. I can still taste your kiss. When can I see you again? I'm already making up another excuse with your wife so we can meet. In that moment, something inside me died. It felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the iPad. But within seconds, something strange happened. A sense of absolute calm washed over me, as if another person had taken control. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't confront anyone. Right then and there, I decided I wouldn't be just another cheating wife story where the woman forgives or walks away broken. This would be different. I would be different. Looking back now, all the signs were there. Richard changing his phone password. The meetings that popped up last minute. The work weekends. Lauren canceling our hangouts last minute due to family problems. The times I'd find them talking and they'd suddenly change the subject when I approached. I'm a psychology professor, for God's sake. How did I not see it? Denial really is a powerful defense mechanism. I was so busy juggling my career, raising my kids, and keeping the house running that I ignored all the evidence right in front of me. Lauren and I met in our freshman year of college. We shared an apartment, secrets, heartbreaks. She was the one who introduced me to Richard at a graduation party. She helped plan my wedding. Godmother to my oldest son. My daughter's favorite aunt. The woman who held my hand when I lost my dad. And also the woman who walked into my house, looked me in the eye, hugged my kids, and slept with my husband. The day after I saw that message, I acted like nothing had happened. I kissed Richard before he left for work, dropped the kids off at school, taught my classes at the university. At lunch, I met Lauren as we'd planned the previous week. She smiled, hugged me, asked about my kids, talked about her job at the art gallery. I need your help organizing my daughter's birthday next month, I said, smiling. Of course, girl. You know you can count on me for anything, she replied, squeezing my hand across the table. Anything except loyalty and respect, I thought, still smiling. That night, after Richard and the kids went to sleep, I began my research. First, I installed an app on my phone to record all my calls. I also bought a small recorder that could be easily hidden. I created a new email address just for this investigation. The next day, I contacted a lawyer who specialized in divorce. Not just any lawyer, but a fierce woman known for taking no prisoners in infidelity cases. Elizabeth welcomed me in her elegant office downtown. I want everything documented before I make any move, I explained after telling her my situation. I don't just want a divorce. I want justice. Elizabeth nodded, understanding. You're doing the right thing. If you act impulsively now, you could lose important advantages in the process. We need solid evidence, full financial documentation, and a strong plan. She recommended a private investigator, Jack, a former police officer with a good reputation. He's discreet and efficient. He specializes in infidelity cases. I left her office with a list of documents to gather and steps to follow. The cost wouldn't be small, but I used my personal savings, money Richard didn't even know I had. As a university professor, I earned reasonably well, though much less than him, a partner at a large law firm. Over the years, I'd always saved part of my salary in a separate account, my independence, as I mentally called it. I never imagined I'd use that money to destroy my own marriage. In the following weeks, I lived a double life. During the day, I was the devoted wife and mother, the respected professor, the trustworthy friend. At night, I became the detective of my own life. I installed software on our home computer to monitor all emails. I placed the small recorder in Richard's car. I began paying attention to every detail: the car's mileage, his arrival and departure times, credit card expenses. Jack, the private investigator, began discreetly following Richard and Lauren. Within 2 weeks, he had photos of them entering a hotel in the south zone of the city. Within a month, he had a detailed report with dates, times, and meeting locations. They meet every Tuesday and Thursday when you have evening classes at the university, Jack explained. There are also records of occasional weekend meetings, usually when your husband says he's working. One afternoon, while Richard was at the office and the kids were at school, I went into our closet and carefully examined the pockets of his suits and pants. I found a receipt from a jewelry store, dated 3 weeks earlier, a pair of diamond earrings that had cost a small fortune. I took a photo of the receipt and put it back exactly where I'd found it. The next day, Lauren showed up for our afternoon coffee wearing new earrings. Diamond earrings. "Your earrings are beautiful," I said casually. She touched her ear, a slight blush on her face. "Oh, thank you. It was a gift from a client at the gallery. He really liked a curation I did." I smiled, already savoring the satisfaction I'd feel when everything came to light. I also began copying all important financial documents: bank statements, tax returns, contracts, deeds, insurance policies. Richard thought I didn't understand anything about finances, that I wasn't interested in boring topics. Little did he know I was building a solid case piece by piece. Elizabeth, my lawyer, was impressed by my organization and composure. "Most people can't keep it together in situations like this," she said during one of our meetings. "I can't afford to lose control," I replied. "I have 2 kids to protect." But it wasn't just for my children, it was for me too. For every moment I'd been made a fool, for every lie I swallowed, for every time Richard came home late smelling of her perfume and I pretended not to notice. The hardest part wasn't gathering evidence against my husband. It was continuing to be Lauren's friend, having lunch with her, listening to her advice, pretending I didn't know she was tearing my family apart. One afternoon while we were having coffee, she said, "You and Richard seem so distant lately. Is everything okay between you two?" The audacity. She was trying to probe whether I suspected anything, or maybe she just wanted to confirm that the coast was clear for her. "We're just busy. You know how life is with kids and work," I said with a smile. "But what about you? Any romance on the horizon?" She blushed slightly. "Oh, you know how picky I am. But yes, there is someone special. Still too early to talk about it." "That's wonderful. I hope to meet this lucky man soon," I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. At home, when I was alone, I allowed myself to feel the pain. I cried in the shower so no one would hear me. Sometimes the weight of the betrayal was so heavy I could barely breathe. 16 years of marriage, a friendship spanning more than 2 decades, all built on lies. One night, I found my 10-year-old daughter crying in bed. I sat beside her, stroking her hair. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "Daddy said he can't come to my ballet performance on Friday because he has an important meeting," she sobbed. "He always misses my performances." I hugged her tightly, feeling a cold fury rise inside me. I already knew, thanks to Jack's report, that Richard had booked a room at a resort for him and Lauren that weekend. The important meeting was yet another romantic getaway. "I'll be there, honey. I'll record everything so you can watch it as many times as you want," I promised. In that moment, any last trace of doubt or compassion I might have had vanished. Richard wasn't just cheating on me. He was cheating on our children too, missing precious moments of their lives to be with her. During my investigation, I made a disturbing discovery. Richard had opened a joint account with Lauren 6 months earlier, an account into which he regularly transferred considerable sums, money from our family estate. "This is excellent for your case," Elizabeth said when I showed her the statements I'd obtained. "He's diverting marital assets to benefit his mistress. The judge won't like this one bit." I also discovered that Richard had named Lauren as the beneficiary of a substantial life insurance policy, changing the original one that had our children's names on it. Yet another sign that their relationship wasn't just physical. There was a plan, a future being built at my expense. To complete the puzzle, Jack found out they were house hunting together. Richard had visited 3 properties with Lauren in recent weeks, all in upscale neighborhoods. They seemed to be planning a life together, Jack explained, showing me photos of the two leaving a luxury real estate agency. I took a deep breath, absorbing the information. Richard wasn't just having an affair. He was preparing to leave me, to abandon our family. And Lauren, my best friend, would be the new lady of a house bought with money I helped earn over 16 years of marriage. The most ironic part? Richard always mocked my profession. "Teachers earn so little," he used to say with a condescending smirk. "Good thing you have me to provide the lifestyle we have." What he didn't know was that my salary, though smaller than his, had been carefully managed over the years. While he spent lavishly on luxury cars, expensive watches, and, now I knew, gifts for his lover, I had been quietly investing. That separate account I mentioned before? It had grown considerably. It wasn't a fortune, but it would be enough to give me the independence to start over if necessary. Richard thought I was entirely dependent on him. Yet another miscalculation on his part. After nearly 3 months of gathering evidence, something happened that sped up my plans. It was a Saturday afternoon and we were all at home. Richard was unusually attentive, playing with the kids in the pool, preparing a barbecue. He had just returned from a business trip of 3 days, which, thanks to Jack's reports, I knew had been a romantic getaway with Lauren to a beach resort. My phone rang. It was Lauren. "Hey friend, just calling to confirm our movie tomorrow afternoon." I frowned. We hadn't planned any movie outing. "Movie?" There was a pause. "Yes, remember? We talked last week. That French film you wanted to see." I understood immediately. It was another of their cover stories. She would make up plans with me, I would supposedly agree, and then, at the last minute, she'd cancel. But she would use that time to be with Richard. "Oh, of course," I said smoothly. "The movie. How could I forget?" On the other end, Richard stepped out of the pool and into the house. Seconds later, his phone rang. I saw the caller ID on the patio table. It was Lauren. He answered inside, but I had heard enough. The contempt I felt at that moment was overwhelming. They were planning their rendezvous right under my nose, using my children as distractions, my home as the stage for their farce. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sent an email to Elizabeth. "I'm ready. Let's move forward." 1 week later, everything was in place. It was a Friday, and Richard had mentioned he had an important meeting at the office and would be home late. The kids were at my mother's house for the weekend, a setup I had arranged deliberately. The office meeting, as I already knew, was yet another rendezvous with Lauren. This time, at our own beach house, where he had gone earlier, to work in peace. I drove 2 hours to the beach house, parked at a safe distance, and walked the rest of the way. I had a key, of course, but I didn't need to use it. The back door was unlocked. I entered silently. Soft music was playing upstairs. I heard laughter, the clinking of glasses. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step a conscious decision. I wasn't acting on impulse. Every move had been planned. In the master bedroom, our bedroom, I found them. Richard and Lauren in our bed entangled, a bottle of expensive champagne open on the nightstand. The same champagne Richard and I had shared on our last anniversary. I stood in the doorway for a few seconds before they noticed me. It was Lauren who saw me first. Her eyes widened, her face turned pale. Richard turned, confused, then froze. "Claire," he began, but I raised my hand, cutting him off. "Don't bother getting dressed," I said calmly, pulling my phone from my pocket and starting to record. "I'm just here to collect a few of my things." Lauren pulled up the sheet, trying to cover herself, while Richard jumped out of bed, hurriedly wrapping himself in a towel. "This isn't what it looks like," he tried, the most cliché excuse of all. I laughed, a real laugh, almost in disbelief at the banality of the scene. "It's exactly what it looks like, Richard. You and my best friend screwing in our bed, in our beach house, drinking our champagne." I walked to the closet, ignoring them both, and picked up a small box containing some of my jewelry. It was just a pretense. I really just wanted to capture the moment, their faces, their pathetic excuses. Lauren began to cry. "Claire, please, we can explain." I turned to her, my eyes cold. Explain what exactly? How you've been lying to me for months? How you came into my home, hugged my children, and then slept with my husband? Or maybe you want to explain the diamond earrings he gave you with our family's money? Or the joint account you two opened? Or the houses you've been looking at together? They both looked stunned. Richard took a step toward me. How did you followed us? I didn't need to follow you. You were careless, arrogant. You thought I was too stupid to notice. I pulled some of Jack's photos from my pocket and tossed them onto the bed. This is just a sample. I have a lot more. Richard ran a hand through his hair, visibly shaken. What do you want, Claire? Money? The house? I stared at him, incredulous at his arrogance. He still thought he could negotiate, that he could buy me off. What I want, Richard, is justice, and I'll get it. You'll be hearing from Elizabeth, my lawyer, on Monday. I suggest you find a good one, too. You'll need it. I turned to leave, but Lauren ran after me, grabbing my arm. Claire, please. We've been friends for so many years. This was a terrible mistake, but it doesn't have to end like this. I looked at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. Don't touch me. Our friendship ended the moment you decided to sleep with my husband. And as for how this ends, this is just the beginning. I left the room, leaving them in stunned silence. I walked calmly down the stairs, got into my car, and drove back home. The entire drive, I didn't shed a single tear. That phase was over. Now it was time to reap the rewards of my meticulous planning. On Monday, as promised, Richard was officially served with the divorce papers. Elizabeth had prepared an impeccable case with all the evidence of infidelity, misappropriation of funds, and emotional abandonment of the children. Richard reacted as expected, first with anger, then with attempts at manipulation. He sent messages, left flowers at the door, tried to use the kids as intermediaries. When none of that worked, he resorted to threats. You won't get anything. I'm a lawyer. I know all the judges in this city. I'll leave you with nothing, he said during one of the rare times we met to discuss matters regarding the children. I stayed calm. Do whatever you think is best, Richard. Just remember I have copies of all the evidence and I won't hesitate to use them. The divorce process was contentious, as expected. Richard tried to hide assets, downplay his income, and claim that I wasn't entitled to the house because he had paid most of it. But Elizabeth was always one step ahead. Every move he made was anticipated and neutralized. Lauren tried to contact me multiple times, messages, emails, even showing up at the university where I work. I ignored every attempt and instructed campus security not to let her in. One afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Lauren's mother, an elderly lady with whom I had always had a good relationship. Claire, dear, please reconsider. Lauren is devastated. She made a terrible mistake, but she's truly sorry. Mrs. Marta, with all due respect, your daughter's mistake wasn't a momentary lapse. It was a calculated betrayal that lasted months. She had hundreds of chances to stop, to tell the truth, to respect our friendship. She chose not to. She loves him, Claire, and I think he loves her too. Doesn't that count for anything? I laughed bitterly. Love? Is that what they're calling it now? Two people who lie, cheat, and steal? No, Mrs. Marta, that's not love. That's selfishness. And as for her remorse? She's only sorry because she got caught. I hung up feeling a mix of sorrow and resolve. There was no going back. The path was set, and I would follow it to the end. After 6 months of legal battle, we finally reached the day of the final hearing. Richard had tried everything: intimidation, unfavorable settlement offers, even spreading rumors at my university department that I was mentally unstable. Nothing worked. When we entered the courtroom that morning, I was calm and prepared. Richard looked worn out, yet still arrogant. His expensive lawyers, longtime friends, surrounded him, assuring him that everything would turn out fine. The judge, a middle-aged man known for being fair and thorough, listened to both sides. The evidence was presented: photos, recordings, bank statements, the investigators' reports, and testimonies from friends who had witnessed Richard and Lauren's suspicious behavior. The most impactful moment was when we played the video I recorded at the beach house, along with an audio recording of a later conversation between Richard and Lauren, in which they discussed how they would deny everything, and make me look like a paranoid and controlling wife. We just need to stick to our version. She can't prove anything, Richard said on the recording. And what if she does have proof? Those pictures she mentioned? Lauren asked nervously. Impossible. Must be a bluff. And even if she has something, I can claim it was manipulated. I have friends who can testify for me. The judge watched it all with a stern expression. When the presentations were over, he left to deliberate. He returned an hour later with his decision. This court rarely sees such a clear case of marital bad faith, he began. The defendant not only betrayed the plaintiff's trust through an extramarital affair, but also diverted marital assets, planned to abandon the family, and attempted to commit fraud during the divorce process by hiding assets. Richard visibly paled. His lawyers exchanged worried glances. Therefore, this court decides. Primary custody of the minor children will be granted to the mother, with supervised visitation rights for the father until he demonstrates the ability to exercise responsible parenthood. The family residence will remain with the plaintiff and the children. The defendant will pay child support amounting to 30% of his declared income, as well as cover all educational and healthcare expenses for the minors. The judge paused, adjusting his glasses. Additionally, considering the evidence of misappropriated marital assets used to benefit third parties, the defendant must reimburse the plaintiff for the proven diverted funds, adjusted for inflation. All assets acquired during the marriage will be divided in the proportion of 70% to the plaintiff and 30% to the defendant, as per the law in cases of proven infidelity with material damage. Richard stood up, protesting furiously. "This is absurd! I'll appeal!" The judge banged his gavel. The defendant will control his behavior in this courtroom or be held in contempt. The decision is final and recorded. I left the courtroom with a strange mix of relief and sadness. It wasn't a victory I'd celebrate with champagne. It was the official end of an important part of my life, of dreams I once had, of trust I once gave. 3 months have passed since the trial. Richard moved into a small apartment downtown, a far cry from the mansion we used to live in. He appealed the ruling, just as he promised, but his appeal was denied. The child support arrives punctually each month, not out of conscience, but because Elizabeth made sure to include severe penalties for any delays. His visits with the children are tense and brief. The kids are still processing the separation, especially my eldest son, who used to idolize his father. We're all in therapy, trying to rebuild our new reality. As for Lauren, well, she didn't stay with Richard for long. Apparently, when the money and status started to dwindle, so did the love. According to mutual friends, she's now in another state, trying to start over. Richard was removed from the law firm partnership. A scandal involving adultery and financial misconduct didn't align with the image they wanted to maintain. He now works as an associate at a smaller firm, earning considerably less. And me? I'm rebuilding myself, one day at a time. I was promoted to head of the psychology department at the university. I've started giving lectures on resilience and overcoming trauma, using my own experience as a foundation, without delving into personal details, of course. The house remains our refuge. I've redecorated several rooms, exorcising the bad memories. The bedroom that used to be mine and Richard's is now an entirely new space, with different colors, different furniture. A symbolic fresh start. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night after the kids are asleep, I think about how life can turn around. I imagine what might have happened if I had confronted Richard and Lauren at the very beginning, if I had exploded in tears and accusations. I probably would have heard well-crafted lies, been emotionally manipulated, and maybe even forgiven him out of fear of being alone. Instead, I chose the harder path, patience and strategic planning. It wasn't easy pretending for so many months, swallowing anger and humiliation. But it was worth it. Not for revenge, though I'll admit there's a certain satisfaction in seeing justice served, but for the lesson I learned about myself. I discovered I'm stronger than I thought. That I can trust my instincts. That I deserve respect and loyalty. And most importantly, that I can start over, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. For anyone going through something similar and reading this, my advice is, take a deep breath, think clearly, and don't act on impulse. Seek professional help, both legal and psychological. Document everything. And remember, no matter how painful it is, This too shall pass. Today, I look to the future with hope. I don't know if I'll ever trust someone enough to get romantically involved again. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I know that whatever path I take, I'll be okay. My children will be okay. We've built a new normal, and there is beauty in that too. As they say, the best revenge is living well, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And you? What would you have done differently? Share your thoughts in the comments.